WWF Wrestlemania, released in 1989 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, is the first World Wrestling Federation licensed wrestling game to grace the console. And it shows. Unfortunately, it's not the first professional wrestling game on the Nintendo. That honor goes to Kinnikuman Muscle Tag Match in 1985, released a year later in North America simply as Muscle. Also released in 1986 was the simpler titled Pro Wrestling, as part of the Nintendo Sports series that included gems such as baseball and soccer. Pro Wrestling's actually pretty good and fun to play, something that cannot be said for WrestleMania. Featuring 6 of the top WWF superstars of the time, including Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, the Honky Tonk Man, and Bam Bam Bigelow, WrestleMania allowed you to play in either single exhibition matches with nothing but pride on the line, or partake in a tournament to lay claim to the World Wrestling Federation Championship belt, back when it was a championship title belt and not John Cena's vanity belt. You can also play with a friend or 5 more in the tournament mode, where the winner is the one who wins the most matches, in a round-robin fashion. While it might sound like fun to step into a WWF ring, the truth is that playing WrestleMania is somewhat of a depressing experience, and I'm not just saying that because half the game's roster is deceased. Matches in WWF Wrestlemania take place in a wrestling ring. Yeah, imagine that. And in order to win matches, you have to beat your opponent down to a bloody pulp in order to score the winning pinfall. A daunting task if there ever was one, made more so by the game's limited number of attacks and less than responsive controls. You have a variety of attacks that comprise several punches, kicks, back elbows, and all sorts of strikes. And that's pretty much the bulk of your offense in WrestleMania. Not a whole lot of wrestling in here. Oh, you could sometimes perform moves off the turnbuckles. Maybe you'll luck out and perform a body slam if one exists. But those are far few in between. For the most part, you'll be doing lots of strikes, and so will the computer AI. And the computer AI is pretty relentless, sometimes able to beat you down with rather quickly, while it'll take you 6 weeks to dwindle his energy bar to 0, and even then, it's down to lady luck to pin the guy, and pray he doesn't kick out. Never mind the fact that the button command for pinning an opponent differs between the 6 wrestlers. And if you don't have the manual, you won't know which is what, which I find kind of ridiculous, since every other wrestling game for the most part has the same simple command for pinning. Above all else, there's nothing in the game to really entice you. It's just bland, dull, uninteresting non-wrestling in a wrestling ring. They try to make the game interesting by tossing in superstar-specific power-ups to restore lost health, something you could also do when you're not attacking. But it doesn't really work at making the game interesting or even remotely good, because again, the controls are barely responsive and the matches are ultimately reduced to glorified bitch-slapping contests. I suppose if you keep at it, you'll figure out a wrestling hole or two. Bam Bam Bigelow even has a cartwheel move, which is kinda cool and probably the most interesting thing about this game. But it doesn't save the whole thing. In the long run, it gets boring and really quickly, and quite honestly, it's generally not worth the effort. Visually speaking, WrestleMania is a mixed bag. The wrestler portraits look okay-ish, somewhat resembling their real-life counterparts somewhat, but the in-game sprites leave a lot to be desired. Andre kinda looks like Andre, but the rest of them? Not so much. I definitely recall the phase where Hulk Hogan wore red tights. Must have been during his Soviet years. Oh wait. Also, a lot of these guys look like they have beer guts or something, which, yeah. Sounds also mixed, with the rest of the theme music almost accounted for, but an uneven quality. Pomp and Circumstance sounds serviceable, Real American sounds like it was composed by Martians, and $1 Million Man apparently couldn't afford to pay the price for his proper theme to be ported over, or maybe he decided he'd rather be using Strikeforce's music. If it sounds like I don't have a lot to say about WrestleMania, it's because I don't. WrestleMania is supposed to be the showcase of the Immortals, but WrestleMania on the NES ends up being the showcase of horrible gameplay and immortal sins. I suppose I could have forgiven the lack of wrestling in a wrestling game if the rest of it was worth a damn, but the unresponsive controls doesn't help instill any worth to a game whose bare-bones wrestling results in a game that is downright boring and a chore to play. Hell, I could have given this a pass if it were the first of its kind. But Pro Wrestling came out in 1986 and is a far superior wrestling title to this tripe. Even Muscle has its moments, and that actually is the first wrestling game to come out. In fact, just about the only thing to come out of WrestleMania was this fan-made commercial on the internet.
Out of control! WWF Wrestlemania from NES! 8-Man Mayhem! Did you see that? Hulkamania, brother!
See, that commercial was pretty sweet. This game, not so much.